Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome back to a new live stream. I'm so happy to see you again. And today it is all about judgment, our judgment of ourselves, our judgment of others. All our judgment. But let me introduce myself. My name is Melanie, Josephine. I have written 2 books, Rock Your Payer and Love Life Simplified. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because I'm doing a live stream every week and I'm doing a YouTube video every week. Live streams are Mondays and the video is every Saturday morning. And I also always announce what topic I do on Monday mornings on my Instagram, melanie.josephine. If you have any live stream ideas or video ideas, please message me in the chat. And also, if you're seeing this video as a replay, then just comment below. Okay, let's jump right in. I really like my new lighting. I have organized something new, so this is much better. If it's actually too bright, let me know. But I think it's quite good. So as I already said, we're going to talk about judgment, and we're mainly going to talk about negative judgment. However, I want to tell you that there is not just negative judgment, there is also positive judgment or just our general common sense judgment, because I think sometimes when we say I judge others, or I judge myself, or I shouldn't judge, then we're making it immediately negative. But judgment can also be positive, because when we go through daily life, if we wouldn't have had any previous experiences, anything that we can use to use our judgment, then we would feel pretty lost and it would be an issue. So therefore, I just want to say that not all judgment is bad, and the sentence I shouldn't judge or we shouldn't judge is a judgment in itself, which is crazy. But I have used this sentence a lot as well. Okay, but let's go into the really interesting things, because I've done my research this week, and every time I do research on a topic, it usually gets me thinking also about myself and how I use my judgment, and how now I'm about to say it, how I shouldn't, or how I could do things better. So basically, I recently did an exercise, and in the exercise I was asked to pick a relationship that I struggle with, and to just write all of the judgments of that person. So if you have a person in your life that you struggle with, that you find difficult working with, or that you find difficult loving, or like any person that you have a relationship with but you struggle in that relationship in any way, shape, or form, if you take a piece of paper and you just write all your judgments of that person and just go as wild as you want, it absolutely doesn't matter. Then when you finish the exercise, and here's the really interesting part. When I finished the exercise and I went to the next part, I couldn't believe what the next part was, because it said that now take out one of these markers and mark all of the judgments that you can also place on yourself. That let me see. Yeah. How many of these judgments are also true for you? That was the question. And when I did that, it made me realize that quite a few things were also judgments of ourselves. So the sentence, this is also a sentence I posted on Instagram this week. It's called, "When we judge others, we judge ourselves." And I have actually for a long time not really understood what that means. And this week I've come a lot closer to understanding what that means, but I honestly still haven't fully understood. So if you fully understand, or if you have other aspects that I'm not mentioning in this live stream today, then just write me in the comments below, because I'd be really, really interested to know more what that means. But what I have found it means is basically what this exercise has showed me, that when I judge somebody else, that a lot of these judgments I can just as much place on myself as I can on the other person. And that's why judgments are often projections of ourselves, which is really, really interesting. And then once you've done that, you can ask yourself, okay, why do I judge this person for these things? Which judgments do I want to hold on to? Which judgments do I maybe want to let go of? Which judgments that I can also find within me, maybe I want to start working on myself first? Because it is so easy to always look at others and see what they do wrong, and offering advice, but not really walking your own walk. So that's basically, I think this is probably the situation of most coaches. Well, if they are like really good coaches, at least I would say that if you are a really good coach, you must also walk your talk. And so I am using the tools that I've learned every single day, and I'm also getting coached myself. So yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the other notes that I've made. Yeah, I wrote that in the past we needed judgment more than we do today, because we needed to protect ourselves in a lot of situations that are not really relevant today, but because our brain still works the same way. We still place judgment in a lot of places, even if we ourselves wouldn't necessarily want to do it. Those are just sentences that are offered by our brain. For example, if you get on the train and you see somebody a bit overweight, you might think to yourself, that person is fat. Maybe not. But you may not even want to be rude. This may just be a sentence that's offered by your brain. Or if somebody, let's take that example. If somebody offers something rude to you, by the way, this is just how you would describe what they've offered. Maybe they themselves don't see that as rude, or other people may not see that as rude, but your judgment is that this is rude. I want to, now that I'm bringing up this example, I want to go into something that I've learned this week, which is called mirroring. So very, very often when we place a judgment on somebody else, for example, what I just said, that person is rude, then we mirror that in the sense that, let's say you are working with a child and that child's acting out and really making your day-to-day difficult. And in the evening, you call your friend and you say, oh my gosh, this is such a horrible child. I just never want to see them again, but I have to tomorrow. I just hate this job. I must say that to the end of the year. I just hate it. And then when you look at yourself talking that way, somebody else may perceive you as rude. So when you perceive somebody as rude, you often mirror, and then you're doing something rude. It's the same thing when, let's say our partner comes back from work and they are stressed and they're not in a good mood. We very, very often mirror that behavior, and then suddenly we're not in a good mood. So I've only this week tried this on, and I would highly recommend that you try this as well. Rather than judging your partner and saying, oh, he's upset, he shouldn't be upset, and then you get all worked up and you're upset. So basically he's coming in upset, and then you're mirroring that by being upset as well. You then you're not doing yourself any favors. And what I want you to try on is, when that happens, to just simply say to yourself, okay, he's upset, but that doesn't mean that I have to be upset too. And at first I thought, okay, this is such a tiny sentence, is that going to make any difference? But I've tried this on this week with a different situation, and it really worked. I just kept saying that to myself a couple of times, and I didn't take on that other person's behavior or feeling, because the truth is, when we do that, we contribute to even more sadness in the world. And that's really not very helpful for anybody. It's similar. I've been in a similar situation, not last year, I think the year before, so about 2 years ago. Wow, long time ago. But one of my family members was not doing very well, and I was going to visit and support them. And I said to a friend, I really don't know how to behave or how to show up, because they are in so much pain, and I'll just feel sorry for them, and I'm sad. And she said, well, you're not really helping this person at all if you're showing up like this. If you can just stay with your own energy and stick to your own energy and bring that to the room, you'll be of much more help. And that piece of advice has, at that time, helped me so much, because I was actually able to put that into action and to flow with that. And after my visit, well, at the end of the visit, when I came back home, this person messaged me and said that I've been such a big help. And I think it has a lot to do that I didn't take on, that I didn't mirror. That it's basically kind of the same thing. We didn't call it mirroring at that point, but that's basically what it was. And it's very, very similar with judgment. Another thing that I wrote down, which is very, very interesting, is that we as human beings crave connection, and we need connection. But by constantly judging other people, like our parents should be like so-and-so, or our friends should be like so-and-so, that's judgment. And ultimately, they are how they are. And maybe in some situations you can have a chat, and you can tell them how you feel. But that's not always the case. In some situations, they just want to have the opinion that they have, or they want to behave the way they want to behave. And if you then decide that you want to still have them in your life, but you don't know how to deal with that behavior, then a disconnect is created. So basically, by all of our judgment and our need to be right, we create a disconnect when really we want to feel really connected. And we can only achieve that if we hold space for our truth, our opinion, and their opinion. And I actually kind of had I almost don't want to say it, but now I brought it up, had an epiphany this week, because my dad has been wanting to convince me of something, but his opinion basically, and it kept really annoying me. And then I had a chat to my boyfriend about this, and I said, oh my goodness, I just realized I'm doing the same thing, just in a different way, because I think my opinion is right. And that's I mean, sometimes if you have very, very little in common with somebody, and there's just always this disconnection, you may want to decide that you don't actually want this person in your life anymore. But especially when it comes to family members that you most likely would want to keep, you really want to rethink your judgment of them, because in the end of the day, it's creating a disconnect between you and them. And it also is creating negative emotion within you, because you need to ask yourself, how do you feel when you think of that person in that way, when you keep thinking they're wrong, or when you talk to other people about how they're wrong? I mean, I had another epiphany about mirroring in my own coaching session, because I brought this topic, or I brought one of these topics to my coach, and I was saying, this person is weak, and I don't like this behavior, and I don't know how to deal with it. And then she asked me a couple of questions, and about 10 minutes later, I realized when I think they're weak, I'm showing up weak. That's so interesting, that very, very often, if not most of the time or always, that when we say something about another person, we are showing up in exactly that way. This also happens very often when we're disappointed in somebody and we're saying, I'm so sad because they're not showing up for me. For example, let's say somebody forgot to congratulate you on your birthday, and you're really, really upset about this. And then ultimately that results in you not showing up for yourself, because you could have also just said, okay, that person forgot my birthday, it can happen, why don't I just ring them? I show up for myself. I ring them and say, I make it funny, and I say, hey, it's my birthday, why don't you congratulate me? And most people don't do that, and I'm not saying you have to do that. I just want you to realize what that negative judgment does for you and your relationships, and mostly it doesn't do any good. So I think that's actually a very interesting point to consider. Sometimes, this is also a good point, sometimes we use judgment to feel better. We say something about another person and let them look not so good, like basically we're making them wrong and us right, or we're making them less and us better, like, look what that person did, I would have never done it this way. And that usually just creates that feeling better for just a very short period of time. It can also create connection with another person. That's basically what gossiping is all about, because when you gossip, like, there's two people and they gossip about a third person, then the two people create a connection against that other person. That other person may not even know about this, or know that in their eyes that they did something wrong. But that usually only creates like a superficial connection, and it is fueled really by something negative. Since we're briefly talking about this topic, this was actually one of my New Year's resolutions at the end of last year, currently working on the new ones for next year. Let me know if you're maybe interested into like a New Year's resolutions video, something like that. But what I wanted to say is that now I think I forgot what I wanted to say. What did I want to say about New Year's resolutions? Oh, my New Year's resolution last year was that I've never been like a big gossiper, but that I would, if I had a problem with somebody, that I would either immediately bring it to that person, and obviously in like a proper friendly way. I did another live stream on communication. But basically, if I felt like I wasn't ready to talk to that person immediately, or I felt like there was a piece missing, I didn't know how to approach them, or I didn't know how to tell them, then I would sort of allow myself to talk to somebody else, to just talk about how I can approach that person, but not to gossip about that person. And I found that this resolution actually served me really well. And I've done it a lot this year, that I came into a situation where I needed to talk about something sensitive with someone, but I didn't know how. So then I thought to myself, okay, who could help me with this? And then I immediately approached the person who I thought could help me, and they could usually help me. So this is a really, really good way to actually create connection, because when you have the courage to bring these topics up, these difficult topics, then you create connection, obviously only if the other person allows it. Always has to be a state of allowing for both people, but yeah, very, very good point. I'm laughing because I just saw my Christmas gift list and I had to go to the next page. So yeah, I also wrote down that this actually also came up in my last coaching session when I said something about judgment. My coach said, well, what about accepting? And this is what I wrote down. Accept people around you as they are, however, and focusing on what you would like about them. Yeah, very, very often we focus on that negative judgment and then we completely lose track on all of the things, all of the other things that are good about that person. This is also something I've learned that, you know, whenever you catch yourself in this negative spiral, you're like, but I don't like this about that person and that about that person. And what about that? Why don't you just go in there and say to yourself, okay, but what's good about them? What do you like about them? What might you even love about them? Now, as I said before, you always have a choice whether you want to keep a relationship or not. But generally speaking, if you are working on this relationship because you want to keep it, for whatever reason you have, then it is very, very good to give airtime to both sides, not just the negative, also the positive. And yeah, accepting is a big, big word. Rather than judging, you can do this with lots of sentences. Maybe just think of an example in your mind, one judgment you have of another person, and replace the word judgment with acceptance. I accept that person for this and this. I accept that they're doing this and this. Maybe I don't always agree with that, but I accept it. That's how they are. It's a very good way of moving into neutral, moving away from negativity into neutral, and then you can make your way up there. Yes. I've written about mirroring here, which I've already talked about. Ooh, this is important. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to buy some of these little cards that I used to have when I was studying, and I'm going to write thoughts that I want to think more. I know this might sound ridiculous, but it's not, because our thoughts create our reality. And therefore, this is one of the best things you can do for yourself. I've never done this, but I am going to do this now. I'm actually really excited. But what I'm getting at is that when you have a certain judgment that keeps coming up with a person that, like I said, that you are with, work with, are in a relationship with, what you can do is you can write that down and you can think of something else that would serve you more, that you want to think when that situation arises. Don't wait until that situation arises, because maybe you're already in a spiral where this situation has arisen several times and you always go back to that negative spiral where in the end you're the only one losing out because you're in a bad mood or you're upset. So take that thought that is creating that negativity for you and think ahead of time, like the next time this happens, you're already expecting it, I'm going to think such and such, and you're just going to practice this. And you might even take that card out day to day and you're like, yeah, I know that sentence, I memorized that. I think this is such a good idea, and I really can't wait for those cards to arrive so that I can start doing that. And also I want to write some affirmations on it, and yeah, that's going to be a really nice thing. Also, one of the last things I want to mention is that judgment usually comes from us not really being fully in the moment, because a lot of our judgment comes from the past, like previous situations, and we're already, I want to mention an example in the dating world. Let's say you've been on a lot of really bad dates, and so you are already expecting that the next date is going to be bad as well. So you're already judging that new person, even though you haven't even met them or have been on a date with them. So that is not serving you at all, because you are at a point of creation that is never going to create anything good if you think that way. And I'm currently reading Eckhart Tolle's book. It's called The New Earth, and he's the author of The Power of Now, which you may have read or which you may have heard about. And that's all about the power that you have in the current moment. So you might want to ask yourself, if you're in that judgment or that negative thought spiral, is there actually anything wrong right now? Is there any problem right now? Not from the past, not for the future, not even for tonight or tomorrow morning. Like right now in this moment, is there anything I need to judge or worry about? And if the answer is no, just practice being in the now. I can also totally recommend reading those books. But yeah, I wanted to mention that at the end here, because that has helped me and is still helping me. I'm still reading this book. Just to practice being in the now more will help you to be less judgmental, for sure. Let me just give you an example. I went to the park yesterday and I made it a goal to be more present. So I just looked at the trees, looked at the flowers, looked at people walking past me. I would smile at people. I would notice children and adults and dogs and airplanes, and I would just be present. So when you're present with what's going on around you, you don't actually have time to judge, and you can just really enjoy where you are, and that obviously creates a really positive feeling within you. And I think I probably underestimated how good it feels just to smile at strangers, because most people are going to smile back. And even though it's such a small moment, it is a moment of positivity. And yeah, just so good. Okay, and then I want to mention that when we judge, very often we don't actually take responsibility for our own happiness. Kind of goes back to the mirroring, which I talked about earlier, that, let's go back to that example of your partner coming home in a bad mood and you saying, oh, he shouldn't be in a bad mood. And then you get in a bad mood, and then you are not taking the responsibility for your own happiness. Whereas if you would have said to yourself, okay, he's unhappy, but it doesn't mean that I have to be unhappy, then you're taking good care of yourself and you are taking responsibility for your happiness. Now, I just want to say everything I've just said is obviously advice. Use it, use all these tools, but also don't judge yourself when you mess up. When you have a day where you just feel like crap, you feel bad, because that happens a lot too, that negative self-judgment. Oh, I shouldn't feel bad. I shouldn't have done this or said this. That doesn't help either. Give yourself some love. Give yourself some grace. We're all human beings with flaws. And thank you so much for joining tonight's live stream. I'm going to be back next Monday, 7 p.m. UK time. And I'm wishing you a lovely week and sending you so much love from London. Bye.